Welcome to the Troubled Artist Podcast, Episode 3, Amy Stricker.
All right. So welcome back to the Troubled Artist Podcast. Today I am here with actress Amy Stricker. She's been in the Chicago acting scene for quite some time. She's been in some award-winning short films like The Slight, Yellow Polka Dot, as well as done several commercial work. But again, we will get into all of that during this interview. Before we begin, I'd like to first start off by asking this question. Tell us, who is Amy Stricker?
Amy Stricker. She is an only child who is very, very close with her parents and family. She is an empath to her core. She is passionate about animal rights and politics and the arts. And she loves acting more than anything else.
How long specifically have you been in the acting scene?
So I started acting when I was about 4 years old. I had older female cousins who were doing plays and figure skating and dancing, and watching them perform really lit me up. And I also think they were my earliest role models, so I just wanted to be like them.
Nice. Yeah. No, I can relate with that. A lot of my family, they've always been very supportive of my dreams as a filmmaker, and a lot of my cousins and my brother, we started off by doing silly videos and stuff. And I'm sure, you've also had that support from your family as well, right?
Yes. We're both very lucky. That's rare.
What is it specifically that you look for in a film?
At this point in my life, I feel like I can be a little bit more picky about the projects that I do, that I involve myself with. And I really want to be a part of stories that challenge the status quo. Stories about underdogs, stories about disenfranchised people, stories that really challenge the viewer's narratives, their indoctrinations, and hopefully change their minds and maybe even their hearts.
Nice. What about in terms of a director?
Somebody who is kind, somebody who knows how to speak to actors, somebody who's open to collaboration instead of it's, they have a vision and it's kind of their way or the highway, but also somebody who thinks outside the box and is open to telling stories in maybe a way that hasn't been done before.
For me, there's like two different types of directors. There's ones that are like very critical. They will give like notes like about like almost each and everything. And then there are other directors that are kind of more just like hands off, kind of like almost improv type style. Is there like between those two, is there one that you prefer, or do you feel like there should be a good balance between the both of that?
I think a nice balance is ideal. I think I would prefer a director who, instead of like the first type you listed, whereas I see that more as like kind of somebody standing behind you and like pushing you and like guiding you around, like making you go your body as if you were on a stage, like the director actually moving you to where your blocking should be. I see it. I would hope that the director would be more of like a guiding hand, very what's the word? Physicalized description of that.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can relate with that, because I know like when I started off as a director, because I was a kind of like a shy person. You do have to kind of have like that authority to it. You have to tell them like what your vision is, so that way both not just the actor but also the crew understands what your vision is and how we're going to go about this. Collaboration is something that I think is very, very important, and meeting people like you, whether they're actors or actresses, directors, writers, producers, I feel like everybody has a say when it comes to your film, because like I said, I'm a very collaborative person, but I also feel like listening to other people's ideas is also very important. I think a lot of people think that as a director, they think that you have all the answers. He knows what to do, all that stuff, but sometimes we don't. And a great idea for me can come from anyone, whether they're an actress or an actor or production assistant. I've had great ideas come from people like that. But at the same time, there's like a deadline and structure. So I feel like a good balance between that is very, very important.
Absolutely. I appreciate
So,
your openness to your team because, like you said, I think this is one of the most collaborative art forms that we have, filmmaking. And it really does take a whole village to make the project, to make the piece. It's not just the actors, it's not just the directors, it's everybody.
yes,
And
of
the
course.
editor has the final say, so.
Oh yeah, yeah. So let's say that you get a script, you really like it. What is your process like after you receive a script?
So I studied with a teacher in LA. This teacher teaches her own method that she created. She calls it the macro method. And it teaches you how to approach a script not from the actor's perspective, which is, I think, what most actors do. They go in, they read the script, they immediately start highlighting their own lines, and they're like, how would I say this? How would this character say this? This is more about approaching the script from like an above perspective, like the macro perspective, where you look at it from maybe how the director would see the film, and you ask questions about where does this role fit into the play? What is this character's role in the script? What would be missing if they were not here? And so that's what I do first. She also recommends imagining an actor you think would play this role really well in it, instead of imagining yourself, just to give you like a perspective outside of yourself. And so I do that. And then I'll go through the script and I'll break it down into beats and, objectives and tactics. And but that's the basics.
Nice, yeah. Sometimes I will write like character like breakdowns of, each of the different characters, what their purpose is for not just like for certain scenes, but like just like the whole picture in general. There are some actors that, it interests them obviously not just in front of the camera, but they also want to know the stuff behind the camera. And I feel like that's very important. That's why I like to bring in my actors and sort of give them like a behind the scenes sort of look of how it all goes down.
That's great. I'm
hmm
sure the actors you've worked with have really appreciated that.
I do want to talk about the short films that you've done. You mentioned one called The Slight. Fantastic short film. You did a great performance. Not just you, but like the director. They did a great job. And also your supporting cast playing like the sort of like cult like sisters,
Mm-hmm.
it was good. And like I said, like when I first saw it, I just sort of I felt like a little uncomfortable at first
Mm-hmm.
because it was just like it was bizarre, but at the same time I think that was like the director's intention, because then as I was rewatching it, there is sort of like that humor uh in mixed in with it.
Thank you.
Tell me just like what the overall process of that was like how did you learn about it and how was it working on set with that project?
Sure. So the brilliant director that you were applauding is Ben Kirsten, and Ben Kirsten is the co-founder and owner of 54 Scripts Productions, which was started maybe 2021 when we filmed his first script. Let me go back a little bit. When COVID hit, we were all kind of stir crazy, and Ben had taken quite a long hiatus from writing. And so he now had the opportunity to write. So he sat down and he wrote 54 short scripts in 60 days. Yes. And so the Yellow Polka Dot was the first one that he produced with his partner, Tin Nguyen. Um, Tin now lives in Albuquerque, but they're very close friends. And The Slight was the second film that we worked on together through 54 Scripts Productions. So he reached out to me and asked me to be involved with it. And I did an audition, and he gave me a redirect, and I did the audition again. And he was like, yep, you're in. This is crazy. It was a pretty wild self-tape. And the story is a dark comedy slash thriller, and he wants you to feel uncomfortable. You know, that was his goal. And it's really interesting watching it with a group of people. I've seen it at several screenings, and people don't know whether or not to laugh, and you can feel that like uncomfortable tension in the room. Like everybody's kind of like looking at each other like, is this funny? Can I laugh? And Ben and I being in the room, we have led the laughter and encouraged the laughter several times because we find it hilarious. And once those people are given the permission to laugh, it then becomes more of a comedy. But if you're watching it in a really small group of people and nobody's laughing, it's definitely more of a thriller. And that uncomfortable feeling, that tension really, really permeates the room.
That's why I always feel like it's important just to like watch like films like several times, because there's always like little things that you don't catch the first time, you know. And I remember talking about this on Instagram with you a little bit, but the mise en scène of a film, this was something that I learned like when I was just starting out. It was something back in my junior year of high school. My film teacher, she was talking about like the mise en scène, and I remember just thinking like, oh, like what, you know, like what does she mean by that? And then she showed us different examples of different short films and feature films, and she would just pause on like a still image and just tell us, what do you see here in this image? As we learned about more and more, it actually helped tell the story. Just from like a still image, I could already tell what was going to happen. And then ultimately that thing did happen. It was almost like kind of mind blowing for me. Like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man. But so that's something I always try to do whenever I'm thinking as a director, you know, working with like, you know, obviously your actors and your cinematographer is very important, but I also like to work closely with my production designer to get my perspective of what the production designer has to say. And they always have like these really great ideas, and that's why I really like to work closely with them, because they can have ideas that I would never have thought of.
Sure.
So it's just really cool to really collaborate with that and add things, that idea of like show don't tell. So I really do like to tell stories where there's practically little to no dialogue, and it could be like a short film, like 5 minutes, no dialogue or anything, but it can still have that impact on you. You mentioned Yellow Polka Dot, so that was actually the first film that you did before The Slight. How did you come about going on that project?
Well, I may have misled you. I had actually worked with them once before. We worked on this indie TV show together.
Okay.
The year before we did Yellow Polka Dot. So that's how I met Ben and Tin. They were both on that show, and they asked me to be a part of Yellow Polka Dot. So, but it still was the first production, official 54 Scripts production, even though they had known each other for a long time and had worked together on several projects. But so yeah, they asked me to audition for that. I sent in an audition, and they said it was mine.
I don't know if you want to share like any stories like that regarding like the casting process.
I wish I had a grasp on the casting process.
Or like the audition process and stories behind that.
95% of the auditions I send out, I never hear back from. It's hard. It's super hard to put yourself out there, to consistently be vulnerable and showcase your art and never get feedback or never know if somebody even saw it. There's nothing else in this world that I could see myself doing. So I continue to do it. And I've developed a very thick skin, which you need to have in order to be an actor. But you also have to continue to be vulnerable to allow your emotions to be able to sit right at the surface as an actor. It helps by knowing that casting decisions are almost never personal. You know, it's not about you. It's not about your talent. It's about 100 other things. Your hair color, your height, your face structure, your eyebrows. I mean, it could be anything. Your shoulder width, it could be anything. And so I always remind myself that it's not a reflection of my talent or who I am. It's just the name of the game, and it's a numbers game.
I think people really need to hear that because sometimes people can take stuff like that very personally. Like maybe they haven't developed that thick skin. So like when they hear that no, for some people that could just impact them emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like this would be a good time to talk about the sort of struggles. What's like sort of been the biggest struggle that has come across your way so far?
Um, to be very honest, equating my booking ratio with my worth as a human being. We live in this capitalist world where we measure ourselves based on monetary success. And most actors don't have monetary success. So I found it very hard to continue to carry myself around the world with the confidence that I naturally have, the pride that I naturally have, when all of my non-acting peers, have successful careers and have husbands or wives and kids and houses in the suburbs, and I'm still over here like trying to get a job every day. That is my greatest struggle. But I have worked on it quite a bit, and I do know that my booking ratio and how much I work and how much I earn does not determine my worth as a human being. That took a lot of work. There have been multiple occasions where I've been in shows, mostly theatrical. This doesn't typically happen with on camera, but in my experience with on camera has mostly been commercial and short film work. So I haven't really been on a feature where I'm, working with the same people for a month or two, or a TV series where I'm working with the same people for years. So these are people in theater that I'm working with for multiple months. There have been several times where issues have occurred between whether it's castmates or a director or somebody in the front of house staff or what be it. As a female in this business, if we speak out, we are often labeled difficult or like a diva, somebody hard to work with. And so several times I have not spoken out. And it's really affected me at an emotional level. And so I've learned that I always need to speak up if something doesn't feel right immediately. And what I would like to pass on to others is that you have agency. You have agency, and you are your greatest advocate. So always speak up when something feels wrong.
I think people really do need to hear that. You're not alone. People think that, they have to do everything themselves sometimes, but there's always that support out there, like you said, like with agencies or just going back to like just your family, your friends. There are going to be days like where you kind of just, what the heck am I doing, But it takes time, and we're very lucky to have that support from our family, from our friends, people that we've worked with, whether it's from people that we met on set or going to film school and like professors and going back to them. I feel like it's going to be tough. This is not an easy industry. You just have to develop that thick skin and just continue to push forward. So, and it seems like that you're doing that. You're not letting like these no's, all that stuff get to you. You're just pushing through it. And at the same time, you said there is a time where you do feel uncomfortable. You're going out and you're saying something. I do applaud you for that, because there's some people that kind of just stay quiet and they just let that verbal abuse get to them.
Yeah.
So,
and I think most of the time that just takes lived experience. It comes with age.
Thank you for sharing that. Let's get back into the projects that you've worked on. I also do remember you were on an episode of Chicago PD. What was that process like? How did you get like the script on that, and what was it like working on set on that project?
So I got the audition sides from Claire Simon, who was casting the show at the time. And to be completely honest, I read the sides and I did not want to do the audition. I didn't want my first network TV role to be this role. She starts off half nude. She didn't have any lines. She was in an extremely traumatic emotional and mental state, and I didn't want to do it. But it was the first audition I'd had from Claire Simon in quite some time, so I was like, I gotta do it. So I knocked it out within the first hour of me receiving the audition, which I think definitely gave me a huge advantage because I was probably one of the first, if not the first people to submit. And usually when I have a lot of dialogue in a scene, I don't submit early because I got to work on it. You know, I have to spend way more time preparing those sides. But I submitted and I heard back, I think the next day or the day after, saying that I was on hold. And then I booked it. And it was very exciting and I was really nervous, but I prepped it so hard. I practiced so much. And then I got to set and everybody was really cool and calm. It was a guest director who, after we read through the scene twice, it was on location, so I wasn't on any of the stages. It was in this huge mansion in Uptown, which was super cool. The director was like, all right, let's take 5 and then let's go for a first take. And so he came over to me immediately after breaking the little rehearsal, and he said, Amy, how do you want to do this? And I was like, what? He's like, this is a really emotionally taxing scene. It's really heavy material. How do you want to do this? Do you want to get your wide shot first? Do you want to get your close-ups first? And I was like, I couldn't believe that he was asking me. I was so touched that he had the thought to ask me how I wanted to do this. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. And I opted to do my close-ups first because it was so emotionally taxing that I didn't want, to get my close-up coverage on our 20th take. So we did it. We did 2 takes and he was like, brilliant. We got it. That was so good. You're done. Let's move on. So that felt really reassuring to have him have so much faith in me and to only have done 2 takes. I've never done 2 takes of like anything in my life, let alone network television. And my co-star in the scene, Ansa, he was wonderful to work with, so supportive. The cameramen and the PAs and the makeup artists, everybody was just so supportive and encouraging. And then it was really cool to be on network TV because everybody and their mother reaches out to you and sends you pictures of yourself from TV, and it's just cool to feel that support from the community.
I do remember seeing that clip of, I didn't see the whole episode, but I saw that clip of it on your demo reel.
Mm-hmm.
Are you the type of person that stays in character on set the whole time, or are you someone that kind of goes back and forth?
Great question. When I was starting out in on camera, I was leaning towards staying in character most of the time, and it was exhausting, and it started to really wear on me as a human being. And that was never so clear as when I did my last theatrical production. Actually, I did a production of Anne Frank, and my body couldn't take the emotional toll that I was bearing on it, and so I now know that is not healthy for me. When it's something dark. If it's comedy, I would probably have no problem staying in that world when I'm not during a take. But if it's something dark like the Holocaust, I can't do it. And so for The Slight, I did stay in character the second day of shooting, which was the day that the other 2 women were on set with us. And we had a lot of dark moments, really, really dramatic, emotionally heavy moments, which come off as comedic, but for the character, it wasn't comedic. This was the end of her world. Staying in that place that day was exhausting. So I'm currently working on finding other acting methods that are not so detrimental to my health.
Yeah. No, I understand that because I know there's some actors, method acting,
Mm-hmm.
is the term for it, but there's no one way to go about it. Everybody has their way of going about it, not just in acting but also directing and cinematography. What about films that you have watched? Is there a certain actor that you saw that you kind of aspire to be like, or someone that you would just would love to work with?
Well, my favorite actress of all time is most people's favorite actress, I feel like. She's the queen, Meryl Streep, and she just can do no wrong. I would love to work with her. Oh my God, what a dream. I also really, really love Kate Winslet. I think she's tremendous. I actually watched a movie of hers on a plane recently. I think it was called Lee, and it was about it was based on it was a true story on a photographer who went into concentration camps after they were freed. She was one of the photographers who went in and photographed the concentration camps and the prisoners. And she's just phenomenal. I mean, she's such a beautiful actress to watch. I really admire both of them, truly. They just have such depth and they make it look so easy.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, they're both very great actresses. I think she got nominated for, I think it was like a Golden Globe or something
Did
like
she?
that. So
Okay,
I
good.
think so, yeah. But what's like your favorite genre to watch, or a film that you would prefer to like act in, like in terms of like genre?
I've recently found myself being very attracted to like dystopian dramas or dystopian thrillers. That's really drawing me these days. It's the type of story I would love to be a part of. And I'm going to jump on a later question that I think you were going to bring up. But as far as screenwriting goes, I've never written anything outside of creative writing class in high school. And I started writing my own screenplay, which is a dystopian dark comedy. I'm not sure if it's dark comedy or drama yet, but we're going to lean with dark comedy right now. And I'm like 5 pages in. I've been dragging my feet and I've got so much other stuff going on that I'm not finding time to work on it. But it was brought about by me getting tired of waiting for roles to come to me that aren't coming. So I had the idea to start creating my own roles. And it's a dystopian piece. So yeah, that's the genre that I'm really into these days.
Nice. How was like the writing process for you? Like, are you like enjoying it, or what are you doing to like sort of getting to like that writing like state of mind?
So because I've never done this before, I'm not following any rules. I haven't written any of the books, excuse me. I haven't read any of the books that people have recommended, like, what is it, Skin the Cat or something like that?
Save the Cat.
Save the Cat. Quite the opposite. I haven't read that yet. I guess I'm kind of trying to write it without following any rules, because once I know the rules, then I'll be stuck in my head and I'll be like, oh, well, this doesn't adhere to this rule and this isn't going to be right and it's not going to come out perfect, and I'm just going to write it. I've read plenty of scripts. I understand the structure for the most part. The structure of a script, I don't know if I really have a whole handle on like the structure of a story, but I'm just going to write as it comes to me, and then I'll worry about editing and making it work later.
So like, are you writing just by yourself, or are you like getting feedback from like other actors that you worked with or directors that you worked with, or how are you going about that?
So right now I'm writing by myself. My friend Ben, the co-owner of 54 Scripts Productions, has volunteered to help me write it, but things keep coming up and I have been procrastinating on getting together with him. His idea was to write a short film of it first to have, and then get it produced to have it to show and to gain, traction and funding, and then to go on to write it as a TV series. It's not a feature film. It's a TV series.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. It's like a
Proof of concept.
There you go, proof of concept. There is something that I want to bring up. So I recently saw this other podcast that you were on that came out like a few days ago, the Gilbert K filmmaker podcast. So I saw that again. Great podcast, great episode. There was something in that episode that really stuck out to me. So you mentioned how actors are struggling to make a living, and you talked about how you would love to help make it so that actors aren't struggling with that. And would love if you could just sort of like expand on that idea, or how you plan on sort of trying to help these actors not struggle anymore financially.
Great question. If I had the solution, I would be working on it already. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what realistically the solution is. I just know that the way that the industry works today is unsustainable for 90% of actors. We wouldn't have theater, we wouldn't have TV, we wouldn't have movies, we wouldn't have animation without actors. And, there's a whole other conversation of getting into AI, and hopefully it will not replace us fully ever. But it's 2025. and artistic directors of big theaters, executive producers, CEOs of big studios, they're all making tons of money, and actors are scraping to get by. How is that fair? We are the people telling the stories. You know, Broadway actors are doing 8 shows a week, exhausting shows that wear and tear on their bodies and their voices. And, you know, Broadway actors make decent money, but they're not making Hollywood money. And I just feel like there's no other industry where this is acceptable. You know, even musicians, like you would never ask a musician to come play for a musical for free because a musician has an instrument. And I feel like something similar, it goes in a similar way for crew. You know, I'm in all of these Facebook groups for film and TV, and most of the posts are looking for crew positions, but occasionally there's a project seeking an actor. But I read through them all regardless. And I would say maybe 75% of the time they're looking for crew and it's paid because the crew has a camera, the crew member has a lighting, the crew member has a makeup kit, whatever, and they need to pay them for that equipment. But actors don't have equipment, and I feel like there's some sort of disconnect there. And I just feel like there needs to be more money put into the arts. And I don't know who it comes from. I don't know if it's wealthy donors in theater. I don't know if it's pay cuts to the people in charge of the theaters. I don't know what it is. I just know that this one theater speaking out and saying, hey, we're this brand new theater. We don't have a lot of funding, but we're going to make it a priority to pay $10 to an actor who comes into audition. That is huge. And if the theaters with way larger budgets did the same thing, an actor could eat that day, you know?
Yeah.
An actor could pay for gas to get to the audition that day. They could pay for their train there and back instead of all that money coming out of our own pockets from gigs that we aren't booking. Call it jaded, call it frustrated. I think it's just common sense.
Yeah. There you go. You mentioned that directors or like cinematographers, they have like that equipment. They're bringing their camera, they're bringing the lighting, all that stuff. But actors, they're bringing the emotion. They're bringing that performance to your film, and that's very, very important. It's just as important as a camera or a lighting, because you could have like the fanciest camera in the world, all that, and all the best lighting gear and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if there's nothing to film, like, what do you do? You know, it's like,
right,
you
right.
just all that for nothing, you know?
Right.
So,
we are the subject. And
exactly,
we also
yeah.
had multi-$1,000 educations. So, well, not all of us, but
Right.
that's all in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Being respectful to your actors and just helping them out.
Yes.
Just keep like that relationship very kind and just continue to do great things, and then you'll just kind of go from there. Is there any last minute advice that you like to give to any up and coming artists out there?
Yes. And I did mention this on the Gilbert K show as well, but I think it's so important to know why you're doing this. Why do you want to be an actor? That why is going to carry you through the hard times. It shouldn't be to make a ton of money or to be famous. That can be icing on the cake, you know, when you get there, but it needs to be something more profound than that. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. I have to remind myself of this every day because it's so easy to compare ourselves to others, you know, with social media. But just remember that nobody else is you. You are your own unique being, and the competition you're experiencing, if you're experiencing that, is just with yourself. Nobody else is you.
There you go. Let's discuss the commercial work a little bit before we end.
Sure.
So there were several commercials that I saw. Most notably, I remember there was one that you did with like Caleb Williams and Jim McMahon. I'm a big like Chicago sports fan, so
Okay.
I was just like, oh man, she's with Caleb Williams, and oh my god.
Yeah.
So let's why don't we talk about let's get into that commercial first. Like how did that one come about?
That was a dream commercial because I didn't have to audition for it. My agent at the time submitted me. I don't even know if they submitted my commercial reel or if they just submitted headshots and they cast off of that. But they cast me. We didn't have any information about the shoot until the night before because, you know, there was so much like hush hush about it being celebrities. I find out the night before. The shoot is 12 minutes from my house in the suburbs. My call time was at 8 a.m., I think. It was supposed to be a 10-hour day. I got released at 1 p.m. It was the highest paying commercial gig I had ever booked, and I got to meet Caleb Williams. It was the fastest paced moving shoot I have ever been on. It was beautiful. It was brilliant. It was the hugest crew also. Like, maybe PD was a little larger crew, but I just couldn't believe how many people were there to like shoot this commercial spot. I made some awesome friends on that shoot and worked with some really cool people. And I actually went to school with Jim McMahon's daughter. So I got to chat with him and catch up about her for a bit, which everyone, when I finished talking to him, was like, how did you talk to Jim? Like we were because we were told in the call sheet, like, don't talk to them unless they talk to you. Don't take pictures with them. And so we were on a break between takes and Jim was right next to me and I turned to him and I was like, hey, Jim, I went to school with Lexi. Just wanted to check in on her and see what she's been up to. And he was so excited. And so then he was like talking my ear off. And then he's like, we got to take a selfie and send it to her. And so then we took a photo in front of everyone and I'm like, oh God, I'm going to get kicked off the set. But it was on his phone. But yeah, it was a really fun day. Really great energy and just so efficient and short.
Nice. That's really cool. Did you talk to Caleb Williams or was he?
Caleb introduced himself to us when he walked on set. Seemed like a nice guy. It's just weird to me that like as somebody in my 30s, like celebrities in their, 20s, he just seemed like a young guy to me. I mean, he is, right? And he was a little more introverted. He had a lot of dialogue to say at certain parts, and I think he was a little self-conscious about it, or like maybe insecure. It was endearing. He seemed like a really nice guy. I mean, listen, there's a lot of people who walk on sets and they will not introduce themselves to other actors if they aren't famous. So the fact that he came over and shook all of our hands and introduced himself was a very nice gesture.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. That's good. What about like the commercial you did with Pete? Maybe you want to talk briefly about that one?
That was a riot. Okay, so my friend Brett produced that with his company, Happy Town Studios. And I actually auditioned for that. And he watched my self-tape and then was like, of course I'm going to cast her. What? It's a Valentine's Day spot. And her boyfriend had bought her a horrible massage where the masseuse, who is played by Pete, is eating a burger on top of my naked body. And the ketchup falls onto my back. And then instead of wiping it off, he goes, oh, I'll just use the ketchup to use as like instead of massage oil. So he rubs the ketchup into my back. And the spot was like, don't buy your loved one shady massage, buy them loose fit socks because they stay up. It was really cute. It was really well thought out. And it was such a blast. It was like, what a fun day on set. And Pete was great. And it was really funny because I'm vegan and I didn't love the idea of meat falling onto my back. So they bought veggie burgers. And Pete was so grossed out by the veggie burger that he like couldn't eat. After like the third bite, he's like, I can't eat this anymore. It was very funny.
That's good. One of the last commercials I want to bring up was it was one you did with Tori. It was like a boat commercial.
Yeah.
The sea deck.
Huh?
Yeah. So why don't you talk a little bit about that one?
Sure. That's funny because the producer of the commercial I did with Pete was actually played my husband in this commercial, the Sea Deck commercial. That was a lovely day. That was filmed in Michigan, right on the lake. Really, really nice crew, really collaborative crew. That's JV Studios. They have a location in Chicago, but they also have a location in Michigan, I believe. Tori, unfortunately, I didn't get to spend almost any of the day with Tori because she was on the boat and we were at the house. We never like switched locations or met up to, interact. But that was actually my second time working with Tori. We had worked on some spoof for some big company down in the Loop maybe a year before. But she's great. She's so talented. We've attended several film networking events together over the past year. She's really great. And honestly, anytime something comes my way and I can't do it, I recommend her.
Nice. Thank you again for being a part of this podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
I would definitely in the future, I would love to work with you on a future project.
I would love that.
Thank you again for all the advice that you shared and the struggles that you faced sharing that stuff. I feel like, because like I said, it's very important for people to hear that. So thank you again for doing this.
Thank you for tuning in to the Troubled Artists podcast. Have a great day.